The first formula of leadership is, I'll do it. Step up and take responsibility. Have you noticed that most people want to be leaders, but only a few want to exercise leadership? Being a leader means higher status, greater power, and more money, which is what most people want. However, exercising leadership means stepping up and taking responsibility to solve a collective problem that everyone is facing, which only a few are interested in. If you want to cultivate leadership, you can use this mantra. When faced with a collective problem, you say, I am here, which helps you take action by stepping up and taking responsibility. Saying, I am here, is not innate. Some people may think that saying, I am here, is easy. It's just 2 words, right? It's not just 2 words, it's a mindset of stepping up and taking responsibility, which is not innate for most people. There is a scholar named Van Vugt who studies leadership from the perspective of evolutionary psychology. Van Vugt has this view: we are all born followers, and the default setting that humans have evolved is to follow, not to lead. Our brains are like computers, with a default setting, also known as a default mode, which is what? It's to follow, not to lead. There are 2 evolutionary reasons why we initially choose to follow. Followers go with the flow, and the more people there are, the safer it is for survival in primitive environments. Followers learn through imitation, avoiding the dangerous costs of trial and error. For example, when someone sees a mushroom, who goes to taste it? Following is safer than leading. Following is the default setting for humans, which is also reflected in the bystander effect discovered by social psychologists. You may have heard of the bystander effect, which dates back to a famous murder case in New York. In 1964, a bar owner was killed on his way home after closing the bar, not in a remote village, but on the streets of New York. According to the New York Times, the murder took more than half an hour, and 38 people witnessed or heard the murder, but no one called the police or intervened. You can imagine that after the New York Times reported this, public opinion was in an uproar. Some people said that this was the coldness of interpersonal relationships caused by big cities. Others said that this was a moral decline brought about by changing times. 2 social psychologists were also attracted by this murder case. However, they had a different idea. They proposed the hypothesis that the reason why no one helped was precisely because there were many bystanders, and each bystander thought that others would help, so they did not help. These 2 social psychologists conducted many experiments to verify their hypothesis and discovered the bystander effect. The more bystanders there are, the smaller the responsibility each person feels, and the less likely the victim is to receive help. This bystander effect is also called the diffusion of responsibility, which means that responsibility is diffused, so the 3 monks went without water. In an organization, there is also a diffusion of responsibility effect. The more people involved in a collective problem, the smaller the responsibility each person feels, and the less likely they are to step up. In addition, as I mentioned earlier, following is the default setting for most people, so most people are waiting for others to step up. If at this time, a few people say, I am here, these few people step up and take responsibility. They are exercising leadership. Moreover, because the default setting of others is to follow, they are also likely to follow you. Earlier, I talked about a murder case that became a tragedy because no one said, I'll do it. Now I will give you some examples of cases where someone did say, I'll do it, and because someone stepped up and took action, they became examples of leadership. The first example is a miracle in the history of air disasters. Many people were drawn to the cannibalism aspect of the story, but what I am interested in is the leadership demonstrated in this case. In 1972, a plane carrying 45 people, including 5 crew members, a university rugby team of 15 players, and their friends and family crashed in the Andes Mountains while flying from Uruguay to Chile due to bad weather. 32 people survived the crash. The situation was made worse by the fact that they crashed at an altitude of nearly 4,000 meters on a barren, uninhabited mountain with no animals, insects, or even grass. The nearest road was 400 kilometers away. They quickly ran out of food and resorted to eating the bodies of their deceased companions. After 60 days, a rugby player named Nando and a companion set out to find help, and after walking for 10 days, they finally made it out of the mountains and brought back a rescue team. Nando was not the captain of the rugby team, nor did he hold any position of authority. He was an average-looking, shy player who did not stand out in the team. However, after the crash, Nando demonstrated several qualities that set him apart from others. First, he had an idea to walk out of the mountains instead of waiting for rescue. Second, he had confidence in his plan, even when most people had lost hope. Third, he took action and organized the group to prepare for the journey. Fourth, he led by example and personally led a companion to find help. Nando demonstrated several qualities that set him apart from others. He had an idea, he had confidence, he took action, and he led by example. Nando faced a collective problem that could not be solved by one person alone, and he had to lead a group of people to solve it. Nando's most significant quality was that he was the first to say, "I'll do it." By stepping up and saying, "I'll do it," Nando turned this air disaster into a case of leadership and a miracle in the history of air disasters. Another example is the Junyi Conference, a historical event in the Chinese Revolution. Mao Zedong stepped up and said, "I'll do it," and he did so with courage and skill. "I'll do it" can be said in different ways. When facing superiors or peers, you can say, "Let me do it. Let me take responsibility and solve the problem facing the organization." At the Junyi Conference, Mao Zedong said, "Let me do it," as a member of the Politburo. He did not sit and wait for the General Secretary and the Standing Committee to solve the problem. Instead, he stepped up and took responsibility. Mao Zedong was very skillful. According to the recollections of those present, after the Junyi Conference, Zhou Enlai and Zhang Wentian both thought Mao Zedong could be the General Secretary, but Mao Zedong declined and said he did not want to be the leader. Mao Zedong stepped up and said, "Let me solve the problem. Not, let me be the leader." This was Mao Zedong's leadership artistry at the time. When facing subordinates, you often need to say, "Follow me. Let me do it," means you step up and take responsibility. "Follow me" means you step up and give direction. You need to have a direction for others to follow you. Mao Zedong was remarkable because he not only said, "Let me do it," to his superiors and peers, but also said, "Follow me." He knew the direction, and others did not. He said, "Follow me," and led the way. There is another situation where you need to say, "Follow me," when everyone knows the direction, but the journey is too difficult and tiring, and people may not be willing to do it. In this case, leaders also need to say, "Follow me." I will give you 3 examples: Nando, Mao Zedong, and Jeff Bezos. They led people to survive in extreme situations, lead a revolution, and lead a business, respectively. They all did something different, but from the perspective of leadership, they did the same thing. They stepped up and took responsibility when facing a collective problem. They all said, "I'll do it. I'll do it," is the first mantra we need to practice to develop leadership.